He walked away from Hollywood. And even Elvis Presley never stopped thinking about her. What really happened between them? Dolores Hart was one of Hollywood's brightest young stars in the 1950s and 60s. A stunning, talented actress, she shared the screen with legends, including Elvis Presley. But while the world saw glamour and fame, Hart was quietly wrestling with a spiritual calling that would change everything. At 86, she finally tells the truth about her life, her faith, and her connection with the king of rock and roll. Want to support our channel? Join the Echo Insider. Just hover over the Echo Insider icon, click and watch new videos before anyone else. Dolores Hart was born Dolores Hicks in 1938 in Chicago. But her story isn't just about a girl growing up in the Midwest, it's about a young woman who was already living in two worlds at once. On one side, she had a loving, close-knit Catholic family that taught her discipline, compassion, and a sense of responsibility beyond her years. On the other side, there was a spark of creativity, a restless curiosity, and a longing for something bigger than the ordinary life around her. She excelled in school, but it wasn't just academics that shaped her. It was the way she observed the world, noticing beauty, morality, and human complexity even at a young age. These dualities, faith and ambition, discipline and curiosity, would follow her into Hollywood and later into a life that few could even imagine. Dolores wasn't just any young girl from Chicago. She had a presence that people noticed immediately, a quiet strength, a natural elegance, and an intensity that hinted she was destined for extraordinary things. It's that rare combination, brains, heart, and beauty, that would soon catch the eye of Hollywood studios, but it's also what would eventually lead her to make a life-altering decision that stunned the world. By the time Dolores signed a contract with Paramount Pictures, she was stepping into a world that was dazzling, ruthless, and full of temptation. Hollywood in the 1950s was the epicenter of glamour, ambition, and relentless pressure. But Dolores had something most stars didn't: an unshakable sense of self. She quickly became known not just for her beauty, but for her poise, charm, and that rare ability to connect with audiences in a way that felt personal, intimate, even magnetic. And then there was Elvis Presley. Imagine being an 18-year-old actress meeting the future king of rock and roll, the man who would soon redefine music and culture. Their first encounter wasn't just a Hollywood handshake, it was the meeting of two worlds: the disciplined, elegant young woman and the wild, electrifying energy of a music icon. On screen, they sizzled in films like Loving You and King Creole, capturing audiences' attention, but behind the scenes something deeper was forming, something unspoken, something that couldn't be reduced to mere gossip or tabloid headlines. Dolores and Elvis shared a spark that combined admiration, curiosity, and a genuine emotional connection, one that neither fame nor circumstance could fully explain. And while Hollywood was ready to consume every moment of their lives, Dolores was already beginning to feel that pull towards something far beyond the red carpets and movie sets, a calling that would eventually change everything. Dolores Hart's breakout fame in Hollywood didn't shield her from an inner restlessness that few could see. While fans were dazzled by her smile and on-screen charm, Dolores was quietly searching for something deeper, a purpose beyond lights, cameras, and applause. It was her role as St. Clair in Francis of Assisi that changed everything. Portraying a woman of unwavering faith, inner strength, and moral courage, Dolores began to feel a mirror to her own heart. What most people didn't realize was that she wasn't just acting, she was discovering herself. She spent hours sketching, reflecting, and absorbing the spiritual lessons of the character she embodied. Each line she drew, every thoughtful pause, hinted at a side of Dolores the world had never seen. The contemplative, intensely thoughtful woman behind the Hollywood glamour. This was no ordinary role. It was a door opening to a life she hadn't yet dared to imagine, a life of devotion, meaning, and service far beyond the applause of the silver screen. Even in a world obsessed with fame and image, Dolores began quietly testing the boundaries of her own heart. She wondered, Could she chase both stardom and something far more eternal? The answer would soon reveal itself in a way that shocked Hollywood and the world. Before she vanished from the public eye, Dolores took on roles that weren't just about fame. They were about depth, courage, and emotional truth. In The Inspector, she played Lisa, a woman navigating love, morality, and resilience, earning critical acclaim for her subtle and nuanced performance. And in a 1963 episode of The Virginian, she portrayed a Catholic missionary risking everything to serve a community in desperate need, a role that eerily mirrored her own emerging spiritual journey. Every scene, every line she delivered in these final projects carried a weight that audiences may have felt but never fully understood. Hollywood was watching a star at the height of her beauty and fame, but Dolores was already preparing to leave it all behind. There was a quiet intensity in her performances, a subtle message embedded in every gesture and glance, as if she was saying, "I'm ready for something more." By the time her last film and television appearances aired, viewers had witnessed the evolution of a young woman who could make hearts melt on screen, but whose real transformation was quietly unfolding off-screen. She was on the brink of a life-altering choice, one that would astonish fans, friends, and even Elvis Presley himself. At the height of her Hollywood career, when she was adored by millions and her face was on every magazine cover, Dolores Hart made a decision that stunned everyone. She walked away from it all. Imagine leaving fame, fortune, and a life that countless young actresses dream of, not because of scandal or heartbreak, but because of a calling she couldn't ignore. In 1963, Dolores entered the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Connecticut, choosing a cloistered life of prayer, service, and contemplation over red carpets and movie premieres. It wasn't an impulsive choice, it was the culmination of years of reflection, a quiet inner voice that grew louder with every role, every sketch, and every moment of introspection. Hollywood couldn't understand it, and the press scrambled to label it as strange or shocking, but for Dolores, it was the most natural, most necessary step she could take. She was trading applause for stillness, spotlight for silence, and worldly admiration for spiritual fulfillment. It was a move that would define her legacy and inspire generations to consider what truly matters in life. Dolores Hart's journey didn't end when she became a nun. It transformed. By 2001, she had risen to the role of prioress of the Abbey, a position of leadership and responsibility. But she didn't just lead, she nurtured, guided, and inspired. Under her care, the Abbey thrived as a spiritual sanctuary and a hub for arts and culture, blending her Hollywood sensibilities with her devout faith. She oversaw daily operations, mentored younger sisters, and encouraged creative expression in music, theater, and visual arts. Dolores' unique perspective, a blend of celebrity experience and monastic discipline, allowed her to bring warmth, vision, and humanity to the Abbey. It was proof that she had found a way to honor both sides of her life, the artist and the devoted nun. Her leadership was quiet but profound, shaping a community that continues to flourish long after her initial step away from fame. Dolores Hart had rewritten the rules of what it means to live a meaningful life. She had proven that courage isn't just about acting on screen. It's about making choices that challenge society's expectations, even when the world thinks you're insane. And yet, through it all, the memory of Hollywood and one very famous friendship never fully left her. Dolores Hart first met Elvis Presley in 1956, when she was just 18 and already making waves in Hollywood. Elvis was at the peak of his meteoric rise, the king of rock and roll, adored by millions, his every move scrutinized by fans and the press alike. On paper, they couldn't have been more different. She, disciplined, elegant, and thoughtful. He, wild, electrifying, and magnetic. Yet, from their very first encounter, there was a spark, a connection that went far beyond Hollywood romance or tabloid gossip. Dolores recalls him as kind, funny, and surprisingly sensitive, a man whose charisma was matched by depth, few people ever saw. Their relationship was a rare mix of admiration, mutual respect, and emotional understanding. It wasn't just attraction, it was a meeting of hearts and minds, a friendship that shaped both of their lives in ways the public could never fully grasp. Even as Dolores prepared to leave Hollywood for the convent, Elvis never resented her choice. Instead, he respected it, showing a level of empathy and maturity that only deepened their bond. In revealing these moments decades later, Dolores allows us a glimpse behind the legend, showing Elvis as a man capable of genuine connection, vulnerability, and respect for another person's choices, qualities that rarely make it into the headlines. At 86, Hart finally shared the truth. Behind the Hollywood lights and the convent walls, her life was a story of duality, choices, and enduring bonds. She reminds us that fame fades, but love, respect, and authenticity last a lifetime. And her connection with Elvis, it's proof that real relationships go far beyond what the world sees. If you enjoyed this story, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It really makes us smile. And if you're hungry for more fascinating tales, check out the 2 videos right below. You might just discover your next favorite story.